So I'm Christine Webb. I'm an anchor reporter at News 13, and I've been there for about 6 years now. So what I'd like to talk to you a little bit today is about how to live out your dreams, how to make the most of your life, how to think big, and maybe some things that are holding you back. I like to spread a lot of hope and encouragement, and so that's what I'm hoping that you all walk away from today. First, I kind of like to share with you a little bit about my background and story, just so that you have an idea as to where I've come from, what I've been through, so that you know kind of firsthand what it's taken for me to accomplish my dreams. I originally grew up in the Bronx, and from the, why are you shaking your head? Originally from the Bronx, and lived in a poor neighborhood. My mom is legally blind, and my dad was completely blind. And growing up, we went through some pretty tough times. Sometimes we didn't even know where our next meal was coming from. And my dad suffered from type 1 juvenile diabetes at a time where they really didn't have the advances that they have today. And he passed away when I was 10. So as you can imagine, it was just me and my mom. I have no siblings. And it was pretty tough growing up. But I knew, ever since I was 10, that I really wanted to be a TV anchor. And it was funny because my dad always wanted me to be a nurse. And I think it's because I always ended up taking care of him, whether it was his dialysis bag or we were constantly in the hospital. And so he wanted me to be a nurse, but I really wanted it. Every morning, I was responsible for kind of taking care of his dialysis, and we'd turn on Good Morning America, and I'd always be like, that's what I want to do. So he'd always say to me, you can do anything that you put your heart and mind to, and I always remember that. So growing up, I went to Catholic school for about 12 years before going to Syracuse University. And if I had a dime for every person who told me, you're doing what? That's crazy. You'll never make it. Do you know how hard it is to break into this business? I probably would be rich by now. I've heard everything from you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, to that's just downright impossible. But I think it was because of my dad and how determined he was. No matter what doctor he faced or what diagnosis he was told, he always said, nope, I've got this set in my head, and this is what we're going to do, and I'm not going to let anyone stop me. So I always remember that growing up. I went to Syracuse, and very quickly I started interning. I interned at Good Morning America and CNN at a time where they really wanted you to be a junior or senior in order to get an internship, but I was fortunate enough to get an internship as a freshman. Wow. So interned there, and then very quickly got an internship when I got back at a Syracuse TV station, and ended up filing tapes. So I was filing tapes, doing teleprompter, but I was constantly in the news director's office saying, hey, look at my tape, what can I do? Just being very persistent. And they finally did hire me. They hired me, though, as a reporter and / assignment desk person, which the assignment desk is really tough. I mean, there's a lot of people that put on the news. It's not just the people that you see on camera. And the assignment desk is really tough because they're constantly taking phone calls, and they're setting up stories, and they're telling the crews where to go. I mean, talk about high pressure. They probably have one of the highest stress levels of the business. And from there, I went to Utica to be a main anchor there. And from there, I went to Rochester. And from Rochester, I came here. So here I am, living the dream, so to speak. But that kind of gives you an idea as to the path that I took and the way I went about it. I want to try and do an exercise, and I'm going to need a volunteer. All right. Do you have any back problems though?
No.
Okay. Just gotta check.
Are you gonna like lift me and slam me down?
I need you to stand up. Back down. So, first off, I want you to just take a couple of quick seconds and write down what is your dream. If you could do anything right now, and I guess you could write that too.
You mean professionally?
Doesn't matter. This could be personally, professionally. I think sometimes too we get caught up that your dreams have to be professional. But sometimes a dream can be, I want to get married. I want to have kids. A dream could be, I want to own a house. Dreams can take any form, shape, size. You can have one dream, you can have 10 dreams, you can have 20 dreams.
Are we going to be sharing these?
No. These, and I want to be clear that this is just for you and your own personal. Good question though. And maybe this is something you haven't thought about in a while, but it's important to write down and recognize and to revisit every once in a while. And then under A, if you could do anything right now, money was no object, what would it be? So the exercise that we're going to go through are what obstacles are holding you back right now. You've written out your dream. You've also wrote down if you could do anything right now, and there was no obstacle in your way, what would it be? But I want you to write down too and think about in your head some things that are holding you back. And now I'm going to need Elizabeth. All right. So I'm going to have you put this on. Comfy? Mm-hmm. Everything's okay.
Everything's good.
Okay.
The hat goes on your head.
Believe it or not, I took this backpack to Israel. I just came back from Israel. So that was a dream of mine. But we got this hat in Israel. So that's why the hat
on your backpack.
And it's still on my backpack because it's only been a couple of weeks. So.
I don't blame you.
Still want to keep everything fresh. Like, that's my Israel hat. So, anyhow. So, obstacles. What obstacles are, and the book is going to represent an obstacle that we are then going to put in the backpack.
Hence, do I have a strong back?
Hence, do you have a strong back? Exactly.
Fear.
Fear. Awesome. There goes fear. How you feeling?
A little heavier.
All right, a little heavier.
Money.
Money.
Oh,
Here we
put
go.
like 3 of those in there.
Time.
One of mine.
Time. Awesome.
Better hook those bottom buckles.
How much soup did you have?
Did you have a
Did it
nap?
after lunch. Okay, so we have fear, time, money, responsibility. What else?
Wouldn't that be more like obligations though?
That's kids.
Responsibilities,
Kids.
Kids. Parents. They can all
I'm
fall.
gonna say that.
Kids, parents.
Okay, we have one more. We have one more.
Exposure.
Exposure.
Yes.
Can you expand, please, Tony?
Putting yourself out
But
there.
the actual, not necessarily the marketing piece of it, but the I guess getting traction as far as, well, I mean, that's the exposure, whether it's media exposure or being exposed to the right people to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
everything is about who you know.
Oh, that's great.
really awesome. I'm glad you volunteered. Better
The
than
time
that.
is amongst us.
So
And in
now,
my heels.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
how are you feeling?
Heavy.
Can you just take a couple of quick steps?
Yes.
But it's hard to walk, and in fact, look what's fallen out.
Yeah.
Okay, so very quickly, how do we get rid of the obstacles?
I'll put them back on the table.
Name me some ways that we can get rid of, let's start with one.
See a life coach.
All right,
There's
there
a
we
few.
go, there's one book. What's another one? How do we get rid of some of the things, fear, money,
Delegate. Oh, have a plan or a
have a plan, have a, maybe a budget
budget.
for the money thing?
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I would
Pray.
say market better.
What'd you say?
Pray. Amen! Love that one. Okay, what else? What else? She's got two more in here. So we need two more resolutions.
Build a team of support.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Awesome. One more.
Delegate.
For the time. Get
Time.
organized.
Yeah, supposed to organize time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
Not
And
tasty.
isn't your load?
Nice.
Yes. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's awesome. Yay! So that's just a fun little exercise that I always like to do because sometimes you don't realize how much we take on. The fear, the responsibilities, all the things that we encompass until you like physically, put them on your back. But there are ways to lighten the load, so to speak. So I have come up with a strategy that I hope will encourage and inspire you today. And the acronym that I came up with is called ACCS. ACCTS. And we're going to go through each one
That's how I spend it.
and what it means. And hopefully, it'll give you a little encouragement today. So A stands for action. It stands for making that plan. Maybe it's a budget. Maybe you need to write it out. Maybe you need to journal your dream. But the important thing is you need an action plan. And you need to kind of set goals for yourself, whether it's weekly, monthly, yearly. And I find that the most important thing as part of your action plan, like I actually have a notebook. And the first page on the notebook, I write out the dream.
Just like a Habakkuk.
Just like what?
Habakkuk, the Bible.
Oh,
Write the vision and make it plain.
exactly. Exactly. Because when you write it out, it makes it real. And you can visualize it and you can go back to it and say, okay, this is my dream and these are the goals that I need to do in order to accomplish my dream. There's two C's. The first C, Marianne actually kind of touched upon, and that's to circle yourself with positive, encouraging, supporting people. These are great things that we're doing. Being around people who can encourage you, inspire you, push you to be your best. It's important to circle yourself with people who actually believe in your dream, who you can go and say, look, I have this dream. I really need your help. I really need your support and encouragement so that they can be there for you. But I'm going to take it one step further because a friend actually gave me this and it's been so helpful and I hope it's helpful for you. She actually suggested providing a circle, an invisible circle around yourself. And in the invisible circle, you envision, so say somebody comes to you and gives you a compliment, then you let that in your circle. But if somebody maybe doesn't say something that you agree with, or that maybe is negative, or says something that's not so nice, you have the choice and the power to then deflect that and leave it out of your circle.
So this becomes your protected area. It's so important to protect the area around you. And I think especially for women, we find that, we're always worried. I know for myself, I'm always worried about other people, and I'm always taking care of other people, and always wanting to please other people, and I don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings. But when it comes time for me, not necessarily taking as good care as I should of me, and that's where the circle comes in. The second C is collect. And this one is so, so important. Life sometimes gets the best of us. We are all going to have good days, and we're all going to have tough days. Tough days that sometimes are frustrating, sometimes where you get down. But it's important in those tough days to actually collect either positive quotes, scriptures. It's important to, if you get a card from somebody who you love and you treasure that. I actually have a box that's filled with cards and notes that I've collected over the years, so that, let's just say I do have a down day, I can go to the encouragement box that I've collected and I can read them, and it suddenly lifts my spirits. For me, I also find it helpful, especially when it comes to my dream. I also have scriptures that relate to my dream, and I post them on my bathroom mirror or on my refrigerator, places where I can automatically see them, and constantly it's being reinforced, these positive affirmations into my soul. So that's huge. The T is a big one. The T is thoughts. And sometimes our thoughts get the best of us because we're human. And I'm going to share with you a story about how thoughts got the best of me and how powerful our thoughts can be. About 6-7 years ago, I decided that I wanted to train and accomplish the Ironman triathlon. Do you guys know what the Ironman is? I was working as an anchor reporter in Rochester, New York, and that was one of my many dreams. I really wanted to do the Ironman. And the station loved the idea. In fact, they loved it so much that they wanted to follow my progress. Great, right? Oh, joy. Yes. I was so super excited for that. So they followed my training and my progress throughout the year. One thing that's important to point out is that I was 100 pounds overweight at the time. And so I got to the start line, and I remember looking at all these athletes who have come from all over the world. It was in Lake Placid, New York. And here are these buff athletes. And I'm at the start line, and I'm thinking, I don't belong. I'm not good enough. There's no way I can do this. And in my mind and in my thoughts, it just kept going and going. I'm in Lake Placid. The bike portion is all 112 miles uphill. It's up a mountain, Whiteface Mountain. How am I possibly going to do that? And all these thoughts, and they start multiplying, and they start getting louder and louder and louder. The Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then you run a marathon, 26.2 miles, all in one day. And to boot, you have to do each portion in a timed frame. So the swim has to be done in 2 hours. The first leg of the bike portion has to be done by 1:30, and the second leg of the bike has to be done by 5:30. And then you have to be done by midnight. Crazy! So sure enough, my thoughts were getting the best of me. So out of the swim, I suddenly felt sick. So now, it's making things worse. And I'm getting out of the water and I'm like, I don't feel good. How am I possibly going to get on my bike? And I went through the first loop, and I barely made it to the 130 cutoff. And I'm going, it was just getting worse. And I was about 5-10 miles away when it got to be 5:30. And I got pulled over. I was the last cyclist. It was actually, looking back, it was pretty funny at the time. I had 3 ambulances behind me, a motorcade. I mean, you would have thought I would have won the race with the amount of vehicles that were surrounding me, but I didn't make it. And then, and this is with a camera crew following me, and I remember the station saying to me, you know, we don't have to, I know this is pretty embarrassing, we don't have to do this story, we can just let it slide. And I remember thinking, but that's not the promise I made. I made the promise to tell the story, good or bad. And as hard as it was, the next day I ended up going back to the station and telling the story. But it's in that moment of despair, and that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do on the air, because I was so worried. What are people going to think of me? Like, I failed. I mean, you knew that you let yourself down, but then you thought, I let everyone else down too. And then there came the backlash of all the radio stations making fun of you because of your weight and how you looked and all that, and she had no business. I mean, you heard all of it. But I remember crying on the air, getting off, walking into, at the time we had like these tiny little edit bays, closing the door and watching it again. And I remember looking at it thinking, I don't like that girl. That's not me. And I need to change. And something happened in that moment where I was like, I can't do this anymore. So that next year, I actually changed my eating habits. You would think that you were working out, like literally I was working out maybe 40 extra hours a week. And you would have thought I would have lost weight, but I actually gained weight. And I think it was because it was basically because I was eating too much. I was allowing myself, well, I'm exercising all this, I can eat whatever I want. And that was not the case. So I worked harder and smarter. And by the next year that I got to the start line, I had lost 80 pounds.
Wow, that's great.
But by the time I got to the start line the next year, up here had changed. No longer was I standing there and saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I can't do this. Instead, in my head, I was thinking, I can do this. And I remember it was so awesome in the fact that I had a New York State trooper who was following me the whole time, the first time around. And you could tell that he was very choked up when he had to pull me over. And I remember him pulling me aside and saying, don't you dare give up. I want to see you at the start line. And I remember coming back the next year and trying to find him and saying to my photographer, I can't find him. I really want him to see my change. Like, this is unbelievable. And sure enough, you actually have to park your bikes the day before in a specified area. And all of a sudden, lights and sirens, and there he comes on his motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking to myself, he's not going to remember me. There's no way. Sure enough, he remembered me. Mm-hmm. He remembered me. And he actually said to me, I'm going to look out for you at the race the next day. Well, don't you know, sure enough, it was funny. I was on my bike and I was going up the hill, and all of a sudden I had these state troopers like come alongside, and I'm going, this is weird. I'm like, what's going on? Did I do something wrong? Totally forgetting. And he kept his promise. He kept his promise. He was there at the finish line of the bike portion of the course, and he's like, I knew you made it because you changed your thoughts. That's how powerful our thoughts can be. So it's so important to say, I can do this dream. I will do this dream. I am good enough. I am worth it. I had an intern come in 2 days ago and was like, my dream's so crazy, I don't think it'll ever happen. And I quickly said to her, no, you cannot say that. You have to say to yourself, I am going to do this dream. And you can't care what anyone else says, because whatever is in your heart is true. So that's T. S kind of goes with T in the fact that we have thoughts, and thoughts are powerful, but now you've got to speak them. So these all kind of go together. It's so important not to only think good thoughts, but to then speak your blessing. It's important to say, whatever your dream is, I am going to be an author. I am going to be a best-selling speaker. I am going to be the best social media guy ever. Because whatever you say, whatever you think, will happen. So my point today is just to encourage you, wherever, we're all at different stages in our lives and we're all at different points, but the road has not always been easy, and it's not easy for many of us. Lots of times, just like the Ironman, there's ups and there's downs. But it's important to stay the course, and it's important to keep this strategy plan in mind. So if you have an action plan, if you circle yourself with people, collect those positive thoughts, collect those positive words, I should say, or cards, or phrases, or scriptures. Keep thinking good thoughts and then speaking it. You will see your dream come true.
Ooh, I'm excited.